Hey everybody, it's Chris over at Dixieland Farm, and today we're going to be doing a flight from Newport News to Raleigh-Durham in the Piper Cheyenne. So I said in the past that the Piper Cheyenne, I was kind of ho-hum about it, but I remember when I first was interested in buying it, I was super excited about this airplane, and then I flew it, and I'm like, oh, this airplane isn't that great, and I put it away, and then I did the video about my hangar, and I was showing off the plane, and then I said, I really should give this plane another try. And then Xplane 12, it needed to be converted, and so I started kind of tinkering with it, and now I love it. I love this plane because it gives you the speed of a small airliner almost, 250 knots. I mean, I guess that's not quite of a turboprop airliner, but faster than a small general aviation airplane. So I'm going to first go ahead and file the flight plan here so that way it's in the system. So here we are, and we just sent it off, and let's take a look at what the flight is, right? So we're leaving Newport News here, going roughly on 230 on the compass there until we pick up the Franklin VOR, which is, of course, right here, right? And yeah, then it's just basically following the Victor 6 airway down. But you can see this red here. So we got some kind of rough weather if we hang over that. See broken 500 feet. So hopefully we'll be above it. And then we just basically take the Raleigh VOR and come in. So it's 100 miles here, it says, right? So that means somewhere around 50s when we stop using the Franklin and we come in on the Raleigh. And of course we are flying the Slant Alpha. I tend to fly Slant Alpha in the smaller aircrafts and the props. It's just more fun than just plugging in the thing in a GPS and just going for it. So if we put on the layers real quick here, can we see any, we see we got some stuff up here and stuff down here, but nothing to really explain why is it so bad there. And of course, by the time we get there, I mean, it could be completely clear. So let's hop in the airplane. So the first thing we do is we undo the static elements. That's the tags and stuff, and the cones and all that. So we turn that off. We go ahead and close the passenger baggage door. So we close that. And the passenger door, that's in the back. This is a pressurized aircraft also. So another thing we do is, for this aircraft, we turn down the volume because it gets way too loud. Too quick here. So pulling up the weather, and let's move some stuff around here. 2996 on the altimeter. And winds are 1010, so at 10. So pulling up the map here. Our best bet is to take runway 7. That way we are into the wind. So it's basically straight down here onto Alpha, and then boom, right up there on runway 7. Not a problem. So while we are here, we'll go ahead and get rid of the yoke. I don't need to see that. And we can clear that out and put the heading bug on 7. That way it'll kind of line up at the runway for me. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get the batteries on, shut off the very annoying caution, and yeah, shh, be quiet, shh. Let's go ahead and tell it that we're ascending and some kind of pressurization here. We are also going to just go and start an engine. So we turn on the wing and exit lights. We're going to do the no smoking and seatbelts as well, which are up here. So I've turned them on because I've got those buttons mapped. Get the beacon light on to tell people that, hey, we're going to be starting an aircraft here, and we go ahead and get the igniter going. And we're going to be starting up engine 1. And we're going to wait until the percent RPM here reaches roughly 20, and then that's when we can introduce fuel. So now we are introducing fuel. You see it's starting to take off. I'm watching the ITT temperature rise. I'm making sure it doesn't get too hot too fast and do a hot start. So once we're above 50%, we can actually go ahead and turn off those igniters. Everything is going to be happening as it dumps fuel into the turbine. And so a turbine is really just a jet engine, except for that the blades are on the outside instead of the inside, but the concepts are basically the same. So now that we have one engine on, we can turn on our avionics here and start figuring out some of our route. I'm going to pull up some information here. So the Franklin VOR is on 110.6. So on the nav radio, I'm dialing in 110.6, and of course I've got my little control box that I custom built here, so that way I can manipulate all the stuff without having to use my mouse too much. We are on the VATSIM network. We'll be making radio calls. There is no air traffic control on at the moment, so we're going to be flying this as if we're our own traffic controller. So one thing we do is we dial in a squawk code. Normally they would assign you one, but since they're not, I'm doing 2200. When we're on VATSIM and we do 2200, we're telling people, hey, I'm flying IFR, but I've not been controlled yet at any point. If a controller comes on, he'll give me a squawk code and then I'll be in the system. But 2200 kind of lets people know, hey, nobody's talked to me yet. So, also while I'm on the ground, I usually go ahead and get the flaps going. I've yet to have the radar altitude actually say anything to me for a decision height, but I still usually set it. It's probably a setting on my end. The autopilot here I'm going to manipulate in a second, but once we come back here, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it off GPS and put it on nav, because I'm not using the GPS, I'm using my nav radios. What is our initial altitude? I'm going to say it's going to be 4,000 feet, and then we are going to eventually climb to 10,000 feet, and we're going to go up at 1,500 feet a minute is probably fine. We can do faster than that, but there's no real need to rush up to altitude, especially right after takeoff. So I'm doing this so that way it'll make a noise, kind of give me a warning. We'll also put on the flight director. The flight director, what that does is it will kind of guide me with what I've got dialed in, and at the moment nothing, right? So I'll also put it into heading mode, turn that off, let's try that again. So I've got heading select on. I'll put the yaw damper on when I take off. The yaw damper basically kind of controls the side of the yaw motion. Makes it a little more comfortable for the passenger. And then the autopilot. And I'll probably turn that on at some point as well. You can see the wind is making the one propeller just kind of spin on its own, which is kind of fun. Alright, so now that we've kind of briefed that back here, you see we got the no smoking and fasten seatbelt lights on. It's a nice little cabin, right? So it's was it a 7-seater? So you got 2 up front, 2, 4, 6. Actually, it's 8, right? So 7 and 8. Nice. And oh, look, somebody's here. So let's go take a look at them real quick. Oh, there they are. Just kind of taxiing around. Have yet to make a call. But I'm going to make a call right now. And let's see if that wakes them up. Newport News traffic, this is Twin Piper 5522 Lima. We'll be taxiing to runway 7 for a southwest departure. Newport News. Well, he's a pretty bad pilot, as you can see. Getting the second engine going. Newport News traffic. Twin Piper 5522 Lima will give way to the Cessna. Since the guy is yet to make a radio call, And Newport News traffic, this is 25.5522 Lima, taxiing runway 7 via Alpha. Newport News. Why come online and fly if you're not going to actually talk to anybody? Positive rate, gear up. Feet. Get the flaps in. Okay, we finally got the Franklin VOR, which is good. I'm still just hand flying this. Trying not to get too high, too quick. That's going to take me directly there. Newport News traffic, this is Twin Piper 5522 Lima, clear to the southwest. Final call. Newport News. So, unlike that other dude, that's how you make radio calls. So, I am now trying to hold the 4,000. Imagine that's what I was given, right? I'm flying direct Franklin. In 35 miles, trying to trim this out. Okay, let's take a look externally. There we go. Alright, imagine still that give me 4,000. Imagine the controller wants me to cross over the water here at 4,000, then I'm allowed to go up to my assigned altitude, which is 10,000. And they go, okay, now you are clear. I put my yaw damper on and they, okay, you're clear. So, I hit the autopilot. It's going to start increasing me to the 10,000. And we're going to put it into nav. Got our airspeed there. So we're going 200 knots. We got our artificial horizon here along with the flight director. That's kind of telling us where to go. So it's also guiding us down here. This is how many miles for the VOR that we're picking up, which is a radio transmitter. So we were 21 miles away. And remember, we're in the air, so it's roughly 1 or 2 miles above the air. So you'll never see this count down exactly to 0. But this kind of guesses what our ground speed is, trying to figure out, well, the radial and what you're doing. The radial part is right here. This is what I've got dialed in. That's how I know if I'm off the radial. So we're coming in on a 239 radial right now. Does that make sense? I hope it does. I'm also looking at our ITT, our turbine temperatures, and they are perfectly fine. Our engine torque up here is also perfectly fine. Props are going roughly at 20,000. What we're going to do is put on something called prop sync, so that way the props stay in sync with each other. One's not slower than the other, because when that happens, it can kind of make this whoa, whoa, whoa sound, and it's real subtle, and it can actually make people sick, physically sick, hearing that. So, yeah. And then down here, we've dialed in that we're going 1,500 feet a minute until we get to our cruise altitude of 10,000 feet, which we have dialed in here. So, yeah, that's what's going on with all the different gauges that I'm always constantly scanning and looking at. So here we fly majestically above the clouds, but you can see it's kind of broken. And as we go forward, we definitely can see some clouds in the distance, but we should be above most of it. We do have some satellite imagery here, which is nice. And of course, we're using X America, so that's how we can get accurate buildings and placements, opposed to stock. So for example, so if we come down here, you know, you can see those buildings are kind of placed where they would be in the satellite photo. Same thing with down here, you know, we saw. You can see with the driveways, and then the buildings are basically placed exactly where they should be in real life. So that's all done by artificial intelligence and OpenStreetMap data. And interestingly enough, it's Microsoft that dialed in all that AI data back into OpenStreetMap. So, thanks to Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020, we've got extremely accurate placement. So here we are at 10,000 feet. We can turn off the landing light, and we can also start doing some nice things for our passengers. First thing we're going to do is we're going to reduce the RPM, so that way it's not so noisy, right? So it's not going to make too much of a difference, but listen. That'll make it a little bit quieter. We're going ground speed here. You can see of 247, even though indicated it says 220. So that's perfectly fine. Our engine and torque and everything is just going out great. The one thing we do have to pay attention to, though, is we are going to be going over the VOR. So let's pull that up real quick for you. Right, so we're coming in, but we need to go out on a 249. Do you see that right there, 249? So I'll be dialing in 249 here in a second. So as we get closer to the VOR, it's going to get confused. So what you do is you put it into heading mode, which is what I just did. I'm also now going to dial my outbound radio of 249, right? So right there. And I'm going to keep it in heading mode here until we pass over the VOR. So you can see on the map there, there's FKN, so that's us kind of going over it right now. And you're going to see this thing is going to get kind of confused. It says we're far off, but we're not really that far off. And you see 1.8. Didn't go down any further than that. Oh, 1.7. It's going to flat back to 1.8 as we fly over the VOR. And there's 1.8. You see the flag it just switched over. Above the clouds. You see we got a little bit of chop, but nothing too bad. We can go ahead and turn off the seatbelt sign. You guys can walk around. We're going to keep the no smoking sign on because, you know, not good for you. We can look at the weather and also get our map ready. So KRDU, so there's the map, so it's on our screen. So there's a few clouds at 900 feet and a few clouds at 1300 feet, so we're probably going to need an instrument approach in. But variable at 4 knots. Okay. With that information, let me pull up some stuff here for you so that way you can see how I plan it out. We we got plenty of time here. So as we come into Raleigh, the first thing we want to do is we want to look at the airport diagram, right? Where are we going to go? So general aviation is up at this part, right? So there we go. We need to come to the north. So we need to come in on probably 5 right or 23 left, leaving the longer runway for the airlines, right? So 7500, 23 left is probably what we want to do. What procedures are available? So there is an ILS for 23 left. All right, so what would happen in real life, because this is a controlled airport, is they would give me a vector to go ahead and intercept the ILS. So I think we're going to do that. So roughly 20 miles out, we're going to give ourselves a vector to intercept and then come in. The full procedure would be to fly to the airport, then go out, and then come back in. But looking at the plate, because there is no real procedure turn here, so that's fine. We're going to go ahead and start our descent here. It was exactly at 6,000 feet. I'm just going to gently kind of come down. You can see we can even... Got some dudes in the plane here. Did he just give us a stink eye? I think he did. How cool is that? We're over a cloud, so there's a shadow on the plane. Well, it looks clear here, so we are most likely now going to be visual. We're still going to be using the ILS to guide us in, but having to go mist and all that kind of stuff is just not necessary. We'll just stay in the pattern if there's a problem. Because, yeah. It looks like the weather is just fine. It would probably say fly 300 until you intercept the radial. And we flip over. So you can see we've got the glide slope. Seatbelt lights on. 15 miles, so we're doing just fine. So there's the runway through those clouds there. So we're going to keep it on autopilot and coupled here. Let's go ahead and get that speed under control. Let's get a notch of flaps in. At 8 miles. Go ahead and get the gear down. Turn off the prop sync. We got 3 greens, so we know the gear is down. We're going to go ahead and get the igniters on in case we had any kind of issue here. Raleigh-Durham traffic, this is Twin Piper 5522 Lima on a 5-mile final for runway 23 left, Raleigh. There's nobody here, but still. Should always make radio calls. Double checking, definitely no ATC. So, Chris, when are we going to disconnect from the autopilot? That's a good question. Probably shortly here. Alright. Yaw damper and autopilot disconnected. It is my aircraft. Two white, two green. airspeed just slightly because I'm coming a little too fast for me. It was certainly my fault. There we go. Back on the glide slope. Had a little bit of a frame rate issue there, so I went ahead and took care of that. I've got a little button here that'll change our rendering distance. So as you come into a complicated airport that someone did a lot of design for, frame rate can change. So I don't need to see far away, I need to see what's in front of me. So by clicking that, get a better frame rate. So we're looking real good here. And we're just gonna slowly back away the there we go. Probably flared it wrong, but that's all right. Can we make it? We can't. That's fine. Here in a second. Alright, so now that we're off, we can turn off our landing light and strobes. Just hang out here for a second. Let's get that annoying clicks off. Alright, so we are going to the Yep. Raleigh-Durham traffic, this is Twin Piper 5522 Lima. Clear the active runway. We'll be taxiing to General via Alpha, Raleigh. Held it off, and yeah. So even though it said 235, we can tell, I mean, that was basically perfect. I mean, this is just a little off center line, but perfect. And you see, it's got this weird little pause right before touchdown, which is what I think threw off the foot per minute count. But here it's shut down. Get the avionics off. This thing always makes noise. So one trick I do to kind of get this thing to stop is I go ahead and put the props down into feather, and then I go ahead and put it right back, so that way the oil does go back into the props, but it doesn't take forever to shut down. Out back, people can get out, right? And we're going to wait a second until these things stop spinning. Yeah, we're not going to get chopped up now, so we can go ahead and open up the passenger door and pull out what we need. Get our static elements in. My goodness. What a little flight, huh? Sorry about that. Yeah, I waited too long, so I can't get the flight tracker information up, but you saw the flight. It was great. So Jim wants to go outside. I'm going to go grab a drink. Everybody, thanks so much for watching. Take care.